Welcome to the channel. In this video, we're going to talk a little bit about CleanSpark and Bitcoin. We're going to talk about the daily chart, the weekly chart. We'll also take a look at the open options interest for CleanSpark, not for Bitcoin though. And then we'll talk about price targets on both of them, talk about when I'm going to add, when I'm going to trim. We'll have a quick look at some news. I don't think there's too much news out whilst I was away, so we'll talk about some other topics if there's no news available, and we'll take a quick look at what's coming up on the macro calendar. Other than that, you can check out my live portfolio over on eToro. The link for that is in the description down below. I'm just going to check up my portfolio progress for year to date here. Okay, so we did have some great pullbacks on CleanSpark over the last week, so I've added very aggressively to this one. I'm now sitting at a position of about 15% of my overall primary portfolio, which is the one on eToro, which is public. I do hold some in other portfolios, but nothing like the sizing I have in the eToro one. What I do like about this one, though, is even though we had this really big, crazy move up here that we trimmed a little on, I would kind of wish I trimmed a little bit more, but we have come back down to the predicted price action that I expected. And I do think we'll continue to chop around on this one quite violently. We are seeing some issue with the short interest. We'll talk about that later in the news section, because I think that's quite important. That was also something to be very aware of if we're going to start moaning about downside price action on this one. You've got to know what's driving it and why it could potentially stop. So other than that though, I wanted to talk about, as usual, my price targets for CleanSpark. We always talk about these being really dependent on Bitcoin as the underlying asset though. And if I just bring up my little table here. So, I mean, already Bitcoin is over, well, it's a smidge under 100K. So I would expect, my expectation was that CleanSpark could be close to $40, $50, which hasn't happened, which to me tells me I'm still getting a massive deal on this one. So I'm happy to buy probably until we make a new high. I would buy this one depending on when I'm trimming within the volatility. But that said, I don't really want to trim too much because I feel like CleanSpark is becoming a bit of a coiled spring here. When the shorts go, there's going to be a big old pop, and I want as much sizing as I can get on that one until then. But for now, I'm pretty happy with my sizing on this one. Don't expect to trim or add unless we have a big downside move. I will add more. So I'm just looking through my list here, see what we were working with. Talked about volatility. So the volatility doesn't scare me because I already have the expectation for these price moves to happen. And if we look at my little squiggle, price is, chopping around there. This is the expectation that I had going into this. So I'm not phased by these big moves. They're just giving me a little bit of extra space to make a couple of additional swing trades, get a little bit of more juice out of this. I did want to talk about the indicators are looking fantastic though. RSI neutral, so plenty of room to the upside if it wants to pop off. MACDX Plus looks very nice though. The golden cross is not well and truly confirmed. The overbought signals have faded out, and the bottom catch signals popped in as well, which can't hate that. As well as that though, the flow indicator, we still had these 3 golden bars here, which signaled a fantastic buying area here, which I talk about the 3 golden bars as a great area of confluence. If the rest of the chart looks good and you get those 3 indicators, they are generally great buying areas. I don't know why, but normally if you get 3, it's really bullish. It's just something I've spotted, but that's on the black cat banker flow indicator if anyone wants to know about that one. Was there anything else I wanted to talk about? My take profits on this one, we've talked about kind of, I think it should be kind of $50 with Bitcoin over 100K, and that's where I would ideally like to mostly be out of my position if we got to that. So I'd be maybe 75% out and just kind of riding the rest. I think people forget that CleanSpark's made a phenomenal move from its lows at the beginning of the cycle. I think it's up like 700% or something. So I've caught the meat of the move. I've made several huge trades on this one. It really bumped up my portfolio equity last year as well, so it's been the gift that keeps giving. So for everyone that moans about this one a lot, then it's not the stock for you. You probably need to be more steady eddy blue chips or something not so stressful. But other than that, though, on the chart, we will likely stick at this kind of 1666 level again. We'll check the options market on that one and see what they're thinking. But the $20 area as well, that's going to be pretty strong sticking point. So if I wanted to de-risk, 20 would be the logical area to do it. But above that, we've also got the golden Fibonacci at kind of 25. So there's a couple of levels where we can trim. Adding to the downside, though, if we hit back the bull market band, which also lines up with this volume shelf, that would be a fantastic area to add more back. This blue diagonal line as well coming down here towards this volume shelf at the $9 low, that would be, I would go heavy if we got that low. It's not kind of my expectation, but that said, Bitcoin, if we didn't make a new high over the weekend when the market opened for the futures, so if we did pull back, I would expect the miners to also pull back. That said, MicroStrategy have made a big purchase, so we'll see what the market reacts to on that one. Weekly chart, though, let's have a quick look. Got a golden cross confirmed. RSI is kind of neutral, and flow looks like it wants to go bullish, and we have the first golden cross. So again, we can look back here. We had the 3 bars, 3 golden cross, and that was a great bottom to buy, guys. These ones were further apart, so not as bullish, but by the time this third one came in, it nailed very close to the bottom. It was a good indicator to buy. So if you want to, do the longer term swing trades and scaling in out on this one, that's a really good indicator of confluence on this one. Okay, moving on to options. I do want to apologize for the fact that I look a bit dark now, though my key light just died, the battery on it. I should probably just plug it into something permanently, but I couldn't be bothered. So we'll just have to deal with me in the dark for a minute. So for this current week, things look pretty good. I mean, we are pushing a lot on the support. What does this support mean? If we look here, we got a lot of strikes kind of in this area, and people around that area like to take profit. When that happens, the market makers have to step in and then buy back the shares. We also see that at the top here, $20, which we talked about looking at the chart, was a level that a lot of people will be looking at. We can see the green bar here, a lot of volume in that area. Market makers will have to sell in this area. So that's what creates this support and resistance here. I'm not sure if I ever really explained that before. I normally just say there's a lot of volume at the strike. But so we have a lot really strong support coming here with the market makers buying. I don't know if this is going to hold. Again, a lot of pressure on this one. If we see downside, it's potential that we can slip it because we keep trying to break it. But I think that's going to depend a lot on what happens this week. We'll talk about it in the news section, but there's a lot of short interest on this one I mentioned earlier, and a lot of interesting stuff happening. However, if we put it out a week, let's see what the market's looking like. 15 is going to give us a lot of sell pressure as well. That's a really big level, and we can see that's happened as well. So we've got a really tight range coming here. When we do push out these, I do expect a large move to come. The expected move potential range is quite large, as we can see on that one as well. Let's put it out to January 2025. Okay, absolutely whopper move there. A lot more expectation for downside on this one, which is no surprise. That does kind of line up with the thesis that we're working with, that we'll touch on in the news section, that the short attack is putting a lot of downward pressure on this one, hence the volume here. But if we put it out to Jan 2026, okay, we start to see a lot of that pressure fade away. So it looks like a lot of people using derivatives to kind of hedge their bets on that one, to over the shorter time frame, to be able to get a little bit of arbitrage on that one, which is annoying for us long-term spot holders, but we live on. And the expected move by the end of 2026 is quite large, although I don't know if this is worth taking any options on it for these days, because this cycle could be over by then. So just bear that in mind as well. So we won't look at any more options on that one, because they'll be a little bit irrelevant, even though I have the expectation kind of the cycle will be a bit longer than normal this time. Okay, so onto the news. We'll talk about the short interest in a second. I just wanted to put our thinking caps on for a second and acknowledge why I'm picking CleanSpark to be the biggest, best miner in the future. So CleanSpark currently is sitting on a stack of about 8,700. It's probably a little bit higher now, given that this was the data from last month. However, that gives them at today's price roughly about $857 million, and they're adding 700 coins a month. So that gets them to about 10K by year end, which is amazing. So with mining 700 a month, that gives them 38 million and per month, and then 113 per quarter, I think it was. So what I wanted to look at was the current hash rate, which is 31.3, and the efficiency is 20.89. And from that, they are, making quite a decent profit. I think it was $44,000. Let me check that though, because I'm not sure. Sorry, so I just checked. It's actually 54K per coin that they're making at the moment, which is amazing. That's more than most miners. What I did want to talk about though was that a lot of people are arguing that Mara is better and these convertible notes, sealing the deal. I don't think that's true. I think they're turning more into MicroStrategy because they know they can't keep pace. So if we look at their current energized hash rate, or what they're claiming for the energized hash rate, is 36.9 exahash, and that's producing 700 coins. Now that is very inefficient compared to what CleanSpark is going to be able to do. And this most likely happens because, what they say is what's online isn't what's actually online. They're not, a lot of the time, they've got a lot of downtime. The rigs aren't always online. So that's something I wanted to make it. They're no longer the best miner. And, you need to be efficient at mining. You can't just buy coins if you're going to give up on mining. That's not really going to help in the downside cycle. Other than that, though, so we have Mara doing the bond offerings, 0% convertible senior notes. That's important. I think some of this, I did see Rex Finance talking about this as well, that a lot of the downside pressure from this is coming because there's a little bit of an arbitrage play happening. And we also saw Matthew Schultz, digging a little bit at the shorts on this one, the short sellers. My data on the short interest on this one is a few weeks out of date, but he's kindly let us know that a third of the total outstanding shares are sold short. Now, that doesn't happen just randomly. People aren't thinking there's going to be short side interest on these ones. This is a little bit of an arbitrage play. Schultz is kind of hinting that it was a targeted strategy. I don't think so. I think it's just an arbitrage thing going on. There is a few ways they can get out of this. They can, join the party. They can do a senior notes offering as well. I don't know if they need to. Personally, I would just play the waiting game. If we look over here at the days to cover, it already looks like shorts are starting to roll out of this one, creating a little bit more price bounce. This data is a bit lagging. It's a bit out of date, so it could have come up since then. I don't know. But that said, when this number comes down, it reduces the chance of a massive short squeeze. So the days to cover is more. If days to cover was going up, then you could have like a GameStop type situation. But the fact that the shorts are covering, they know the game's wearing thin on this one, and the arbitrage is no longer be there. Especially as Bitcoin price rises, we should see these shorts start to fade out. We did look at the options market on this one. The derivatives on this one say that action fades away towards the year end, so they are looking more in a shorter time frame. So they could play the short game and wait. They could do a senior notes offering. They could do some puts or something, but I probably wouldn't suggest that to be a sane strategy. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Exciting though. But the main thing to take away from this one is understand that for a short to close their position to take profit, they have to buy back the shares, and that creates buying pressure and more buyers, and that's what we want. So short interest is high in this one, but I do thoroughly believe Bitcoin's going up, so CleanSpark should be more valuable and they should become more efficient, more profitable. The next few quarters for these are going to look amazing on their balance sheets. So I'm a buyer, and the short the short interest issue is just a bit of noise to me. Right, I've got a meeting in half an hour and I want to get some food, so I'm going to have to blast through this quite quickly, unfortunately. I feel like I always end up doing that, having to rush through things. But looking at the chart here, we're completing this measured move. Pretty much we're on par at the top of this volume shelf. Price is very undecided over the weekend, very small ranges. I think a lot of people were hoping a massive pop over 100k and we off to the races again. That hasn't happened. And, it could still happen when the market opens later today. We have pushed up a little bit. We're very close, like 98.4, which is amazing. I've been really impressed by the strength of Bitcoin up here, actually. We know Sailor's just buying loads. The ETFs are buying loads. Just everyone's buying. But it could go a lot higher, but it also could come back down. It's in kind of no man's land. It needs to make a decision soon. Personally, I wouldn't hate it if it came back down to 91. I know everyone will be doom and gloom, but realistically, that's a very small move for Bitcoin. It'd be about 10%, hardly world ending, and it would give us a nice back test, build up a good volume shelf. But then below that one, we come down here to kind of 73. I don't see that happening again, not now. I think the cat's out of the bag. RSI is looking a bit spicy here, but we know Bitcoin can get very hot on RSI, so not really something to base any trades around. For me, I don't trim or add my Bitcoin stack. I kind of scale in when it feels like the market's bottoming. A few like about a year after the previous cycle peak, that's when I start to buy, and then I sell out when I think the top's coming. So it's a very long term swing trade. MACDX Plus though looks fine. Nothing really exciting happening. We're not overbought. We're not oversold. We're not nothing. We're just kind of tootling along. And same with flow. We're just kind of tootling along. Let's have a look at the weekly though. So weekly, we look good here. Very good actually. We still have some more measured moves up down to the 127 and then a good level at 150 with the next fib level at 160. So obviously Bitcoin's had a really spicy few weeks, which is great. So it makes my kind of targets look very modest now, though, with my range being 120 to 240. I do now expect to get up to the at least 200k range, kind of right up there, 180, 200. 240 is like, and anything over 240 is just, I'm retiring at that point. So I might not make any more YouTubes, but very exciting. RSI, it's hot, but look, we can go much higher, and we've not had any kind of divergence or anything yet, which is great. MACDX Plus, again, fantastic, and flow looks good, so we could go a lot higher. But I don't know. Things are looking really good. We're fast approaching the area where I'm going to be starting my mindfulness. I do actually want to rework my chart on this one. I think this season's going to be much later than normal, so I want to kind of extend my profit taking windows on that one. They're way too early. May, I don't think the top's going to be anywhere near May. I think it's going to be much later towards the end of the year. So I'm going to have to spend some time rejigging my thesis on this one, but that's not a good thing. It keeps us fresh on something and thinking about it and all the impacts of it. There's a lot of political stuff happening. Gensler's gone. Trump wants all the mining to be US and other countries are buying. It's just crazy. It's crazy. There's a lot to think about and there's a lot of potential here. I don't even think the downside price action is going to be anything like what we've seen before. I think it's going to be really moderated. So that's something to bear in mind as well. Moving on to the US macroeconomic data. It's Monday, so there was nothing yesterday. We do have the Chicago Fed National Activity Index expectation, which is forecast as negative and previously -2. The Fed Manufacturing Index previous was negative, but forecast for 1. Interesting. So that's had a good ride up. If we look at that little chart there, can we get a little pop up? That's pretty good. Not bad. Good for you, Dallas. Other than that, though, bill auction. So nothing that's going to change the flow of anything this morning or this afternoon. I don't think there's any earnings on today either, so the party can continue. We had a good week last week, that can carry on. Tuesday, tomorrow. FOMC minutes, that could be a big deal, but it's towards the close of the market. We could see some, kind of boring price action tomorrow as we wait for that data, though. Other than that, new home sales data, the market's not really paying attention to that one at the moment, but I'd be keen to start getting a beat on what's happening there. We're not expecting anything great, so probably won't get my hopes up too much for a housing recovery anytime soon. Consumer confidence on the rise again, though. Excellent. What expected to be on the rise again, I should say. More housing data that's expected to kind of deteriorate as well. So macro looks okay. No kind of big earnings or anything like that. Yeah, we could carry on unless something rocks the boat substantially. Fingers crossed otherwise, though. That's a wrap. If you enjoyed this content, give it a like, share with your mum, your nan, your dad, your dog, and I will see you tomorrow for Tesla Tuesday.